My heart shattered when Winston snatched the simple gift box from my hands and threw it into the trash right in front of his new client, Knox. "What is this? Dollar store wrapping paper?" Winston said with a laugh, wrinkling his nose in disgust. "Knox, I'm so sorry. My boyfriend never understands what presentation means." Blood rushed to my face. I stood there in the middle of Winston's penthouse, where everything was marble and gold, and my hard-earned $15 cufflink set had just become garbage. I'd worked overtime all night at the grocery store to afford that gift. This was Winston's promotion celebration. But now he was looking at me like I was an embarrassment. Knox didn't say anything. He stood there in his suit, broad shoulders perfectly fitted, his piercing blue eyes observing me with a strange intensity, like he was seeing something inside me that Winston never could. "Baby, you just don't get it." Winston turned to me with a fake soft tone. "Someone like Knox belongs to high society. You can't show up here with cheap gifts like this. You need to raise your standards if you want to stay with me." My hands started shaking. I wanted to speak, to tell him how hard I'd worked, that this gift wasn't meaningless, that love isn't measured by price tags, but Winston had already turned back to Knox with his practiced smile. "Come on, let's sit. My chef is making special Italian tonight." I couldn't move. I just stood there feeling my feet against the floor, like someone might pick me up and throw me out any second. My throat tightened and I kept my eyes down, humiliated and hurt. But then Knox spoke. "When did you buy this?" Knox asked, looking directly at me, his voice calm but commanding. My breath caught. "Last night, after my shift." Knox's expression changed. He looked at Winston and suddenly what was on his face wasn't respect. It was pure anger mixed with disappointment. "Winston," Knox said very quietly, but every word carried a warning. "What did you just do?" Winston laughed nervously. "Bro, relax. It's just, you embarrassed him, in your own home, in front of me." Knox's voice grew harder. "You mocked his effort." Winston's smile fell. "Knox, come on. This is only—" But Knox had already moved. He walked straight toward me, so close I could smell his sandalwood cologne. He glanced at the trash bin, then turned his icy stare back to Winston. I could see his jaw clenching, his knuckles turning white like he was controlling himself. "You think your money makes you a good person?" Knox said, slow but deadly calm. "Do you even know what this guy does for you? How hard he works?" Winston's mouth hung open. He tried to say something, but Knox raised his hand to silence him. And then Knox did something I never expected. He grabbed Winston's collar and delivered a tight, controlled punch straight to his jaw. Winston fell. I stood frozen in shock. Knox turned to me, something soft in his eyes, concern, care, something deeper. "Let's go. You're not staying here." I couldn't process what just happened. My legs felt weak as Knox gently took my elbow and guided me toward the door. Winston was still on the floor, holding his face, looking stunned. Part of me wanted to check if he was okay, but a bigger part of me, the part that had been hurting for months, felt relief. "Wait, Knox," Winston started, but Knox cut him off. "Save it. We're done here." The elevator ride down was silent. I could see my reflection in the glass walls. My eyes were red, my face flushed. Knox stood beside me, his breathing slightly heavy but his expression blank, as if he'd just done something casual. When we reached the parking lot, Knox pointed to his sleek black car. "Get in." I shouldn't have come," I whispered, guilt and confusion swirling inside me. "That was your business deal. You shouldn't have done that." "You hit him. He's your client. You'll lose money." Knox stopped. He turned fully toward me and gently gripped my shoulders. "Casey." He said my name for the first time and it sounded so natural, like he'd been saying it forever. "Stop. Just—" His voice was soft but firm. I looked into his eyes. Those blue eyes that seemed cold before were now giving me something else. Warmth. Protection. "You didn't need to stay there," Knox continued, his grip becoming even gentler. "And I needed to hit him. No deal, no amount of money is more important than what he did to you." I turned my face away so he wouldn't see my tears. But Knox gently caught my chin and turned my face back toward him. "Look at me," he said, his voice holding no command, just a request. I gathered courage and looked into his eyes. He was so close, his presence overwhelming yet comforting. "You're not the one who should be ashamed." "He is," Knox said, slow and deliberate. You bought that gift with your hard work, with your own money. It was thoughtful. It was real. He humiliated you because he doesn't understand your value. But I do. My throat tightened. You don't even know me. Knox paused for a second, then opened the car door and helped me inside. When he got into the driver's seat and started the engine, he spoke again. I know you work late shifts to pay your rent and manage your bills. I know your name tag says Casey, and you're always polite to customers even when your eyes are exhausted. I know Winston never deserved you. He never did. My breath stopped. This man actually noticed me. How do you know me? I asked, my voice barely audible. Knox started driving, but one hand was on the steering wheel and the other was tense on his thigh, like he was controlling himself from saying something. Because I see you, Case. Every Friday night when I come to buy groceries, when you scan my items and politely ask how my day was, when you're tired but still smile anyway, my heart suddenly started racing. Heat rose to my face. Knox had been noticing me? For that long? I want to see you, he said, still focusing on the road, but with something vulnerable in his voice. Properly, without Winston, without any third person, just you and me. My mind went blank. This man who makes deals with people like Winston, who's obviously successful and established, wanted to see me. Me who was barely surviving paycheck to paycheck. But I'm just a grocery store worker, I said, feeling stupid and insecure. Why would you waste time with someone like... Knox suddenly pulled the car over to a quiet corner. He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned toward me, completely turned, giving me his full attention. Because you have something people like Winston will never have, Knox said, his voice intense. Humility, kindness, real emotions that aren't fake. He paused for a second. And I look for people who don't put on a show, who are genuine. I wanted to cry, but this time from relief, from confusion, from overwhelming gratitude. Knox took my hand gently, carefully, like I was something delicate. So dinner? Tomorrow? My choice. No pressure, but I really want this, Case. I nodded yes, because I had no words. Because for the first time, someone was looking at me like I mattered. And when Knox released my hand and started driving again, there was a subtle, genuine smile on his lips. I felt like maybe my life was finally about to change. Maybe I finally deserved something good. The next evening, my hands trembled as I stood in my small apartment staring at the mirror. I'd pulled out my best outfit, a simple button-down shirt I'd found at a thrift store, but was clean and decent, and dark jeans that were at least presentable. Knox had sent me the address of a rooftop restaurant so fancy that I'd gotten nervous just looking at pictures on Google. When I arrived at the entrance, Knox was already waiting. He wore a casual black turtleneck and fitted trousers, simple but effortlessly elegant. When he saw me, a warm smile crossed his face that completely transformed his usually serious expression. Casey, he said, walking toward me. You look absolutely perfect. I blushed. This is all very fancy. I'm not sure. Knox touched my lower back, light, respectful, but also possessive. Relax. Nobody here will judge you. And if they do, they'll deal with me. We went inside and sat at a private corner table where all the city lights sparkled below. Everything felt surreal, like I was in some dream. Everything was elegant but not overwhelming, and Knox's presence beside me made me feel grounded. The waiter came and Knox pushed the menu toward me. You order. Whatever you like. It was a small gesture, but my chest tightened. Winston never asked. He always ordered for me, saying, you won't understand this, or trust me, I know better. I cautiously ordered something simple and Knox gave his order. When the waiter left, Knox picked up his wine glass but looked at me before drinking, waiting. So, he set his glass back on the table. Tell me, how did you end up with someone like Winston? He didn't deserve you. I stared at my plate, uncomfortable memories flooding back. I was young, naive. When we met, he made me feel special. He gave compliments, attention. I thought finally someone actually loved me. Knox stayed silent, listening. He didn't interrupt, just listened attentively. But then slowly everything changed. I continued, my voice shaking. He started criticizing my work, my appearance, my choices. He said it was all for my improvement. I believed him. Knox set his glass down. His expression tightened. Casey, that was manipulation. Emotional abuse. I know, I whispered. But leaving was hard. I kept thinking maybe if I tried harder, if I became better, then maybe he'd go back to how he was before. But that never happened. Knox reached across the table and held my wrist. Gentle but firm. You were already enough. You still are enough, he said, his voice intense. You never needed to change for anyone, especially not for someone who didn't understand your value. Tears came to my eyes, but I blinked them back. I didn't want to break down here in a public place. Why are you being so nice to me? I asked, my voice barely stable. What do you want from me? People aren't just kind without a reason. Knox didn't let go of my hand. Instead, his grip became more secure. I want you to see yourself the way I see you, he said, slow and genuine. Do you know how rare and beautiful your smile is? When you're genuinely happy? I've been watching you for months, Case. Your tired eyes when you come from late shifts. Your forced politeness when customers are rude. But yesterday when you stood in front of Winston, there was so much pain in your eyes. And I couldn't bear that moment. I couldn't speak. A lump formed in my throat. Nobody had ever seen me like this, cared like this. When did you first notice me? I finally whispered. Knox smiled, half sad, half hopeful. He released my hand but kept his hand on the table, fingers close to mine. The first time you picked up my milk carton that fell on the floor and apologized to me when the mistake was clearly mine. You treated me like a normal person, not a potential client or networking opportunity. You made eye contact with me and genuinely asked how my day was. Since that day, I started coming to find you. My heart was racing. This was all overwhelming. Knox's honesty, his attention, this feeling that someone actually saw me, actually valued me. But then Knox's phone buzzed on the table. He looked at the screen and his jaw immediately tightened. His entire body language changed, tension filled him. Winston, he said, disgusted. My stomach twisted. What does he want? Knox hesitantly turned the phone toward me. The text on the screen was clear. Knox bro, chill man. It was just a joke. My boyfriend is a bit sensitive. Come back, let's finalize the deal. I'll make it worth your while. Knox picked up the phone and typed a quick reply. I saw the words flash on the screen. Deal canceled. Permanently. He put the phone back on the table, screen down. My eyes widened. But, your business, your contract, nothing I have is... Knox paused, his ears turning slightly red. More important than you. And I never do business with anyone who treats anyone like that. You? Realization slowly dawned in my mind. Knox had almost said, who treats you. He'd chosen his words carefully, but the meaning was clear. Knox realized what he'd almost let slip. He looked slightly awkward. This was the first time I'd seen him less than perfectly composed. And that vulnerability made me smile. A real genuine smile I hadn't given in a long time. Knox saw my smile and his entire expression softened. He leaned back, relaxed, and picked up his wineglass. So, Case, he said, his tone becoming lighter. Now that Winston's drama is over, tell me, what do you like to do when you're not working? And as we started talking naturally, comfortably, I felt that maybe finally there was someone who understood me, who accepted me. Maybe this was a new beginning. We talked for hours. Knox told me about his childhood, growing up with parents who valued work ethic over money. He shared how he built his business from the ground up, how lonely success could be when everyone wanted something from you. I opened up too, about my dreams of someday owning a small bookstore, about how I loved old movies and cooking, even though my kitchen was tiny, about the things I'd never shared with Winston because he was never genuinely interested. When the check came, Knox wouldn't let me even look at it. This is on me, please. As we left the restaurant and walked to his car, Knox's hand found mine. Not possessive, not controlling, just there. Connect. Thank you, I said softly. For tonight, for everything. Knox stopped walking and turned to face me under the streetlights. Can I be honest with you about something? My heart started pounding. Of course. I've been waiting months to do this, to actually talk to you. I kept telling myself it was inappropriate, that you were with someone, that I should just be a customer. But when I saw how he hit you, Knox's jaw tightened. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm glad you didn't, I whispered. Knox stepped closer. Can I see you again? Soon. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, please. The smile that broke across Knox's face was worth everything. The next morning I was at my usual shift, standing behind the counter scanning items when Knox walked in and headed straight to my register. Good morning, he said casually, picking up a basket with just a single apple in it. I glanced around nervously. Some of my coworkers were watching, curious. Knox? Why are you here? You don't need groceries for just— I needed to see you, he said casually as I scanned his apple. He slid a folded note onto the counter, subtle enough that nobody else noticed. Read it later. When you're alone. Then he left, leaving me breathless and curious. I slipped the note into my pocket and continued working, though my focus was completely gone. During my break I went to the stockroom and opened the note. His handwriting was clean and precise. Casey, I can't stop thinking about last night. About your smile. About you. Meet me after your shift. I'll be parked outside in the gray sedan. My heart fluttered. This felt like some teenage crush, but it was real. Knox was real. His feelings were real. But before my shift ended, Winston burst through the door. He wore sunglasses, probably hiding his bruised jaw, and his energy was aggressive. Casey, he said loudly with fake cheerfulness. Baby, please. Seriously, I'm sorry. I said some things in anger. You know I actually love you. Come on. Let's talk. Everyone's eyes turned to us. My coworkers, customers. Everyone was watching. My manager was even observing from the corner. I was embarrassed, angry. But more than anything, I was done. Completely done. Winston, I said quietly but firmly, please leave. I'm at work. No, listen. Winston tried to reach across the counter to grab my wrist, but I quickly stepped back. I said leave? I repeated, my voice stronger. Something dark flashed in Winston's eyes. His fake concern mask slipped and anger showed underneath. Oh, I get it. Knox put some ideas in your head? You think he actually cares about you? Winston said quietly but venomously, leaning close. Casey, wake up. He sees you as a charity case. A project. When his interest fades, he'll leave too. And you'll be back here, alone, worthless. Those words stabbed straight into my heart, targeting my insecurities directly. My hands started shaking. But then a strong, familiar hand landed on my shoulder, grounding, protective. Knox. I hadn't noticed when he'd entered, but now he stood directly behind me, his presence intimidating. Move. Now. Knox told Winston, his voice dangerously low. Before I finish what I started yesterday. Winston forced a laugh, but his nervousness was obvious. Bro, seriously? You're risking your reputation for this, nobody? Your business. Knox took a step forward, keeping his hand firm on my shoulder. If you touch him again, if you say his name, if you even look in his direction. He paused, leaning slightly forward, his voice ice cold. I won't just punch you. I'll personally make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what kind of person you are. Your reputation? I'll destroy it myself. Winston went pale. He looked at me once, hurt and anger mixed, but mostly defeat, then quickly left the store. An awkward silence filled the store. Then slowly everyone returned to their work with whispers and glances. I took a deep breath, realizing I'd been holding it. My body was tense, adrenaline still pumping. Knox looked at me with concern. He gently squeezed my shoulder. Are you okay? I wasn't okay, I was overwhelmed, shaken. But when Knox took my hand right there in front of everyone, without hesitation. Yes, I said, my voice shaky but honest. I am now. My manager approached the counter, concerned but professional. Casey, you can leave early if you need to. I looked at Knox. He nodded slightly. Reassuring. Yes. I told my manager. Thank you. Within 10 minutes I'd packed my bag and come outside. Knox gently held my elbow, guiding me, protective but not controlling. Come on, he said. You need to get away from here. Where? Knox hesitated, then looked straight into my eyes. My place. You need a safe space. And I can't leave you alone. Not after this. My heart skipped. Knox. Just to relax, he quickly clarified, though his ears turned pink. Just a safe space. Nothing more. Unless you're comfortable. Okay, I said. Let's go. And when we got into his car and he started driving, his hand hesitantly came to rest on my thigh. Gentle testing. When I didn't react, when I actually placed my hand over his, Knox exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. This wasn't just dinner anymore. This was the start of something real. Something safe. Something mine. The drive to Knox's place was quiet but comfortable. He kept glancing at me, making sure I was okay. Every time our eyes met, he'd give me this small, reassuring smile that made my chest warm. "I hope you don't mind," Knox said as we pulled into an underground parking garage. "My place isn't as showy as Winston's. It's more practical. I prefer practical," I said honestly. When we took the elevator up and entered his apartment, I was struck by how different it was from Winston's penthouse. Where Winston's place screamed wealth and status, Knox's home felt lived in and welcoming. Comfortable furniture, bookshelves filled with actual books that looked read, framed photos of what seemed like family and friends. "Make yourself at home," Knox said, hanging up his jacket. "Are you hungry? Thirsty? Maybe some water?" As Knox went to the kitchen, I walked around his living room. There were little details everywhere. A guitar in the corner, a chess set on a side table, plants on the windowsill that were actually alive and healthy. "Here," Knox returned with 2 glasses of water. He handed me one and sat on the couch, patting the space beside him. I sat down, maintaining a respectful distance, but Knox gently pulled me closer until our shoulders touched. "Casey," he said softly, "I need you to understand something." I turned to look at him. His blue eyes were intense but warm. "What Winston said, none of that is true. You're not a charity case. You're not a project. You're—" He paused, searching for words. "You're someone I genuinely care about. Someone I want to know better. Someone who makes me want to be better." Tears pricked my eyes. "Knox, I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of this being too good to be true. Of getting hurt again. Of not being enough." Knox set both our glasses on the coffee table and turned to face me fully. He took both my hands in his. "I can't promise I'll never make mistakes. I can't promise everything will be perfect. But I can promise I'll never intentionally hurt you. I'll never belittle you. I'll never make you feel less than you are." He squeezed my hands. "In case, you are more than enough. Exactly as you are." Something broke inside me then. Some wall I'd built to protect myself. And before I could stop myself, I leaned forward and hugged him. Knox froze for just a second. Then his arms wrapped around me tightly, securely. One hand cradled the back of my head while the other pressed against my back. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." And for the first time in years, I believed someone actually did. A week had passed since that night at Knox's apartment, and everything felt different. Better. I'd spent the night in his guest room, but the next morning he'd made breakfast, actual homemade pancakes, and we'd talked for hours about everything and nothing. He'd driven me home afterward, but not before making me promise to text him when I got inside safely. Now, as I stood behind the register at work, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he looked at me, about how safe I felt around him. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced around to make sure my manager wasn't watching before quickly checking it. "Knox, lunch break at noon? There's a sandwich shop across the street." "My treat." I smiled, my fingers already typing back. "Me. You don't have to keep buying me things." "Knox, I want to, let me." How could I say no to that? At exactly noon, I clocked out for lunch and hurried across the street. Knox was already there, sitting at a small outdoor table, 2 wrapped sandwiches and drinks in front of him. He stood when he saw me, that warm smile spreading across his face. "Right on time," he said, pulling out my chair. "You're really doing the gentleman thing, huh?" I teased, sitting down. "Always," he replied, settling into his own seat. "How's your morning been?" "Busy. Some lady yelled at me because we were out of her favorite yogurt brand." I unwrapped my sandwich. "How about you? Don't you have, like, important business things to do?" Knox laughed. "I rearranged my schedule. Wanted to see you." My heart did that fluttering thing again. "You rearranged your schedule just for lunch?" "Casey," he said, his expression becoming serious. "I'd rearrange my entire life if it meant spending time with you." I nearly choked on my sandwich. That's intense." "Too much?" he asked, looking worried. "No," I said quickly. "Just, nobody's ever said anything like that to me before." Knox reached across the table and brushed his thumb across my knuckles. Get used to it. I plan on saying a lot of things nobody's said to you before. We ate and talked, and I found myself laughing more than I had in months. Knox told me about a disastrous business meeting where the projector had died and he'd had to present everything from memory. I told him about the time a kid had knocked over an entire display of canned goods and I'd spent 2 hours restacking them. Do you ever think about doing something else? Knox asked. Not that there's anything wrong with your job, but do you have other dreams? I hesitated. Winston had always shut down these conversations, telling me to be realistic. I've thought about going back to school. Maybe studying graphic design. I used to draw a lot when I was younger. Knox's eyes lit up. You draw? Can I see some of your work? It's nothing special. Show me anyway. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my photos until I found some old sketches I'd photographed. Hesitantly, I handed him the phone. Knox studied each image carefully, zooming in on details. Casey, these are incredible. Why aren't you pursuing this? Money. Time. Winston always said it was impractical. I stopped myself. Sorry. I shouldn't keep bringing him up. You can talk about him if you need to, Knox said gently. I'm not threatened by your past. I just want to be part of your future. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an alarm. I have to get back to work. Knox walked me across the street, his hand naturally finding mine. At the store entrance, he pulled me aside, away from the windows. Dinner tonight? My place? I'll cook something proper this time. You really want to spend that much time with me? I asked, still not quite believing this was real. Knox cupped my face gently. I want to spend every moment I can with you. Is that okay? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good, he smiled. I'll pick you up at 7. He left, and I floated through the rest of my shift in a daze. My coworker, Maria, nudged me during a lull. Who's the guy? She asked with a knowing grin. Just someone who makes you smile like that. Girl, please. That's not just someone. I blushed. It's new, really new. Well, he better treat you right, or he'll have to deal with all of us, Maria said protectively. She'd seen some of my worst days with Winston. He does, I said softly. He really does. That evening Knox picked me up exactly at 7. He'd changed into a soft gray sweater and dark jeans, looking casual but somehow still put together. The drive to his place was comfortable, filled with easy conversation about our days. His apartment felt even more welcoming the second time. Knox immediately headed to the kitchen while I settled on the couch, watching him move around confidently as he prepared dinner. Can I help? I offered. Absolutely not. You're my guest. Just relax. I watched him cook, noticing little things, how he hummed softly to himself, how he tasted everything carefully, how he seemed genuinely happy doing this. Winston had never cooked. He'd always ordered in or made me prepare something. What are you thinking about? Knox asked, catching me staring. Just how different this is. How different you are. Knox set down his wooden spoon and came over to the couch, sitting beside me. Different good or different scary? Different good, I assured him. Definitely good. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch lingering. I want you to know something. I'm not trying to rush you into anything. Whatever pace you need, that's what we'll do. He paused, searching for words. I just want you to know where I stand. How serious I am about this. About you. My throat tightened with emotion. Knox, you don't have to say anything back, he said quickly. I just needed you to know. But I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell him that I was falling too, that he'd become the best part of my days, that I thought about him constantly. Instead, I leaned forward and kissed his cheek, lingering there for a moment. When I pulled back, Knox's eyes were soft and bright. What was that for? For being patient with me. For being you. He smiled and returned to the kitchen, but I could see the pleased expression on his face as he stirred the pot. Dinner was amazing. Pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, and a simple salad. We ate at his small dining table, knees touching underneath, and I realized something profound. This felt like home. Not the place, but the feeling. The safety. The warmth. Stay tonight? Knox asked as we cleared the dishes together. I mean properly this time. We can watch a movie, talk, whatever you want. What about work tomorrow? I asked. I'll drive you in the morning. I'll wake up early, make you breakfast, drop you off with time to spare. How could I say no to that? We ended up on his couch with a movie playing, though neither of us really watched it. Instead, we talked about childhood memories, favorite books, what we wanted from life. Knox's arm was around my shoulders and I was curled into his side, feeling safer than I'd felt in years. Casey? Knox said softly, his fingers playing with my hair. Thank you. For what? For giving me a chance. For trusting me. I tilted my head up to look at him. Thank you for being worth trusting. His eyes searched mine and I saw something there, something deep and real and terrifying in its intensity. But instead of scaring me, it made me feel chosen. Wanted. Valued. Can I kiss you? Knox whispered. Really kiss you? My heart hammered against my ribs. Yes. He leaned down slowly, giving me time to change my mind. But I didn't want to. When his lips met mine, it was gentle and sweet and perfect. Nothing rushed. Nothing demanding. Just us. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Knox rested his forehead against mine. I'm falling so hard for you, he admitted. I don't know if that's too much to say, but it's true. It's not too much, I whispered back. Because I'm falling too. His smile was radiant, and he kissed me again, softer this time, like a promise. That night, I stayed in his guest room again, but it felt different. Less like running away and more like choosing something. Choosing him. Choosing this new possibility. And as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this hopeful about the future. 3 weeks into whatever this was with Knox, and my life had transformed completely. We fell into a routine, lunch dates when his schedule allowed. Dinners at his place or quiet walks through the city. Weekends spent exploring bookstores and coffee shops. He'd started teaching me to cook, patiently showing me techniques while standing behind me at the stove, his arms around me, guiding my hands. But tonight was different. Knox had asked me to meet him at his office after my shift, saying he wanted to show me something. I'd never been to his workplace before, and as the elevator climbed to the 15th floor of the sleek downtown building, I felt nervous butterflies in my stomach. The doors opened to a modern reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A friendly receptionist smiled at me. I walked down the hallway, taking in the professional atmosphere. Knox's office door was open and I could see him at his desk, focused on his computer screen. He looked different here, more authoritative, powerful. It reminded me that he lived in a world far removed from mine. He looked up and saw me, his serious expression melting into that warm smile I'd come to crave. Hey, you made it. This place is impressive, I said, stepping inside. His office was spacious with beautiful views, decorated minimally but tastefully. Knox stood and came around his desk, pulling me into a hug. It's just an office, you're more impressive. I laughed against his chest. Smooth talker. He led me to a door I hadn't noticed, unlocking it to reveal a smaller office space, currently empty except for a desk, chair, and computer. What is this? I asked, confused. Knox turned to face me, suddenly looking nervous. I have a proposal for you. And before you panic, hear me out completely. My stomach flipped. Okay. I stared at him. Knox, I don't have a degree. I don't have professional experience. You have talent, he interrupted. I've seen your work. And yes, you'd need some training, but I'd arrange that. The salary would be significantly more than what you're making now. Full benefits. And, he hesitated, this would be legitimate. I'm not offering you this because we're together. I'm offering because you're genuinely capable and I think you'd excel at this. My mind reeled. This is too much. People will think I made a smart hiring decision, Knox said firmly. Casey, I've shown your portfolio to my marketing director. She was impressed. She doesn't even know that we're seeing each other. This is real. You showed my work to someone? I asked, touched and terrified. With your permission, I'd like to show it to more people. I believe in you. The question is, do you believe in yourself? Tears pricked my eyes. Winston had never believed in me. He'd never encouraged my dreams or supported my ambitions. But here was Knox, offering me not just a relationship but a future. I'm scared, I admitted. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? Knox took both my hands. Then you learn and try again. That's how everyone starts. But Case, you won't fail. I've seen what you can do. You have vision and creativity that can't be taught. What about us? I asked quietly. Won't working together complicate things? We'll set boundaries. Keep professional at work. We can make it work if we're both committed. He squeezed my hands. But I won't pressure you. This is your choice. Take time to think about it. Can I see the portfolio you showed her? I asked. When did you do all this? I whispered. Late nights this past week. I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to prove to you and anyone else who needed convincing that you're worth investing in. A tear slipped down my cheek. Knox gently wiped it away. Is this too much? He asked worriedly. I didn't mean to overwhelm you. I just saw an opportunity and thought. I kissed him, cutting off his words. When I pulled back, I was smiling through my tears. Yes? Yes, I'll take the position. If your marketing director actually approves. If this is legitimate, then yes. I want to try. Knox's face lit up, and he lifted me off my feet in a spinning hug. You won't regret this. I promise you won't regret this. He set me down gently and we stood there grinning at each other like idiots. There's a formal interview process, Knox said, suddenly all business. I can't just hand you the job without following protocol. But I truly believe you'll ace it. My marketing director, Susan, wants to meet you Thursday at 2. Can you make that? I'll request time off work, I said, still dazed. And if you get this, when you get this, you'll need to give 2 weeks notice at the grocery store. Professional courtesy. I nodded, trying to process everything. This was happening. This was really happening. Knox pulled me close again. I'm so proud of you for saying yes, for taking this chance. I'm terrified, I admitted into his shoulder. Good. That means it matters. That means you care. He pulled back to look at me. But you're not alone in this. I'm here. Every step. We left his office hand in hand and Knox took me to a nice restaurant to celebrate. Over dinner he coached me on interview techniques, what questions Susan might ask, how to present myself professionally. You're really good at this, I observed. The mentoring thing. I want you to succeed, Knox said simply. Not because it would mean we'd work together, but because you deserve this opportunity. You deserve to see yourself the way I see you, as someone capable, amazing things. That night, back at his apartment, I couldn't stop looking at the portfolio he'd created. Each piece of my art was treated with such care, such respect. Winston had once looked at my sketchbook and called it a nice hobby. Knox had turned it into a professional presentation. What are you thinking? Knox asked, joining me on the couch. I'm thinking about how much my life has changed since I met you. How different everything feels. Knox wrapped his arm around me. Better, different? Infinitely better, I confirmed, leaning into him. You make me want to be braver, to try things I'd convinced myself I couldn't do. You were always capable of those things, Knox said softly. You just needed someone to believe in you, to remind you of your own strength. I turned to face him fully. I need to tell you something. Anything. I'm falling in love with you, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I know it hasn't been long and maybe I shouldn't say it yet, but it's true. You've changed everything for me and I needed you to know. Knox's eyes widened, then softened with emotion. He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs stroking my cheeks gently. I fell in love with you the first time you smiled at me across that grocery store counter, he said, his voice thick. I've been waiting to say it, waiting for the right moment. But to beat me to it. Say it anyway, I whispered. I love you, Case. So much it terrifies me sometimes. We kissed then, soft and deep and full of promise. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly loved. Not for what I could provide or how I made someone look, but simply for being myself. Later, as we lay together on his couch, my head on his chest listening to his heartbeat, Knox spoke quietly. No matter what happens with the job, we're going to be okay. You know that, right? I know, I said, meaning it, because with Knox I finally believed in happy endings. And this was just the beginning of ours. 2 months later, I walked into Knox's office building with my employee badge clipped to my shirt, carrying a coffee from the shop downstairs. It still felt surreal. Working here, being part of this professional world. The interview with Susan had gone better than I'd dreamed, and she'd offered me the position on the spot. My 2 weeks at the grocery store had flown by, with my coworkers throwing me a small celebration on my last day. Now I was settling into my new role and I loved it. The work challenged me in the best ways. And Susan was an incredible mentor. She pushed me to think bigger, to trust my instincts, to take creative risks. True to his word, Knox maintained professional boundaries at work. We'd agreed not to display affection in the office, to keep meetings strictly business, to let my work speak for itself. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me during meetings with that soft expression and I'd have to fight the urge to smile back. But it was important. I needed to prove I belonged here on my own merit. My desk phone rang. Casey speaking. Conference room B in 5 minutes. Knox's professional voice said, bringing the Morrison pitch designs. Yes, sir, I replied, matching his formal tone. I heard him exhale softly before hanging up. Our little inside joke about the workplace dynamic. I gathered my design boards and headed to the conference room. Knox was already there with Susan and 2 clients. The meeting went smoothly, my designs receiving enthusiastic approval. As everyone filed out, Knox caught my eye briefly, pride evident in his expression before he schooled his features back to professional neutrality. But later, after hours when the office had emptied, he appeared at my desk. Everyone's gone, he said with a smile. We can drop the act now. I laughed, spinning in my chair to face him. How'd I do today? Brilliantly. The Morrisons loved your concepts. He leaned against my desk. Susan pulled me aside after. Said she's never seen a new hire adapt so quickly. Pride bloomed in my chest. Really? Really? You're amazing at this, Casey. I knew you would be. He glanced at his watch. Speaking of which, I need to show you something. Come with me. Curious, I followed him to the elevator. Instead of going down, he pressed the button for the rooftop. I'd heard the building had a rooftop terrace but had never been up there. The doors opened to reveal a beautiful space, garden areas, seating arrangements, string lights that must be gorgeous at night. But what caught my attention was the small setup in the center, a table for 2 with candles, covered dishes and a bottle of wine. Knox, what is this? I breathed. It's been exactly 2 months since our first real date, he said, taking my hand. And I wanted to celebrate, to show you how far you've come, how proud I am of you. Tears pricked my eyes. You did all this? With some help from the building's event coordinator, he admitted. But the idea was all mine. Come sit. We settled at the table, and Knox uncovered the dishes. Pasta from that same restaurant where we'd had our first date, my favorite dessert from the bakery near my old apartment. He'd remembered everything. To new beginnings, Knox said, raising his wine glass. To believing in possibilities, I added, clinking my glass against his. As we ate, talking about our days and dreams for the future, I marveled at how comfortable this had become, how natural it felt to be with him, to share these moments. I have something for you, Knox said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small wrapped box. My heart started racing. Knox, it's not what you think, he said quickly, though his ears were turning red. I mean, it is serious, but it's not. Just open it. With shaking hands, I unwrapped the box and opened it to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm, a tiny paintbrush. Knox, I whispered, touched beyond words. I saw it and thought of you, of your art, of how you've transformed your life. He took the bracelet and fastened it around my wrist. I wanted you to have something to remind you of your strength, of everything you've accomplished. Thank you, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. It's perfect. Knox took my hands across the table. Casey, these past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. Watching you grow, seeing you come into your own. It's been incredible. You're incredible. You gave me the chance. No, he interrupted gently. You gave yourself the chance by saying yes, by being brave enough to try. I just opened a door. You walked through it. I stood and moved around the table, and Knox immediately stood to meet me. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him close. I love you, I said against his chest. So much. I love you too, he murmured into my hair. More than I knew I could love anyone. We swayed there for a moment, just holding each other as the sun set over the city skyline. The string lights flickered on automatically, bathing everything in soft golden light. Knox pulled back slightly to look at me. I want to talk about the future. Our future. Okay. I said, my heart pounding. I know it's relatively soon, but I'm sure about this, about us, about you. He cupped my face gently. I'm not asking anything today, but I want you to know where I stand. I see a future with you, Case. A real one. Marriage, a home together, building a life side by side. And when the time is right, when we're both ready, I'm going to ask you properly. Tears streamed down my face. Knox, you don't have to say anything now, he said softly. I just wanted you to know. Wanted you to understand how serious I am. How committed I am to this. To us. I see that future too, I whispered. I want that with you. Knox's smile was radiant and he kissed me tender and deep and full of promise. When we broke apart, we were both slightly breathless. Dance with me, Knox asked, pulling out his phone and starting soft music. We danced there on the rooftop, the city lights twinkling around us like stars. My head rested on his shoulder, his arms secure around me, and I felt completely at peace. Thank you, I said softly. For what? For seeing me, for believing in me, for loving me. Knox tightened his hold. Thank you for letting me, for trusting me with your heart. As we continued swaying to the music, I thought about how much had changed. How I'd gone from being with someone who diminished me to being with someone who celebrated me. How I'd transformed from someone barely surviving to someone thriving. Winston had been wrong about so many things, but mostly he'd been wrong about me. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't undeserving. I was capable and talented and worthy of real love. And Knox had helped me see that. Not by fixing me, I'd never been broken, but by loving me exactly as I was and encouraging me to reach for more. What are you thinking about? Knox asked, his lips near my ear. How grateful I am. How happy I am. How this feels like a dream. It's not a dream, Knox assured me. This is real. We're real, and I'm going to spend every day proving that to you. I lifted my head to look at him, seeing nothing but love and sincerity in his eyes. I believe you. Good, he smiled, because I'm never letting you go. As the night deepened and the stars came out, we stayed there together, talking and laughing and planning. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was where I was meant to be. With Knox, I'd found more than love. I'd found home. I'd found myself. I'd found a future worth believing in. And as he held me close, whispering promises and dreams against my skin, I knew our story was just beginning. The best chapters were still ahead, waiting to be written together. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Our beginning. And it was perfect.